What's up, Capoeira Nation? Welcome back to the Capoeira Experience podcast. Thank you so much for coming back. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening to all the podcasts and be part of this awesome journey of learning. And it's all this knowledge drop on the podcast is also available to you anytime. And again, I don't care group, I don't care Capoeira style. All I care is about everybody doing Capoeira. But now that I say that, I really care about everybody doing capoeira, and I think us taking care of our mental health. And I know capoeira can help for mental health because it helped me and it keeps helping me for that. And then sometimes we just don't talk about it. We just like keep it for ourselves. It's something a little bit more personal. But I think it's good to talk about it and to see for other people if the other people are going through whatever experience they are feeling at the moment. I'm 100% sure capoeira can help you to feel better with yourself, and then just in general notes for mental health and physical health and spiritual health and everything that capoeira involves. So today I have a special guest. He actually reached out to me to talk about this because I think it's really important, and it makes me really happy when people reach out because that lets me know that people are listening to a podcast and learning and taking little pieces out of the podcast, which is the goal of this. So, and today our discussion is going to be about mental health. So, please let me introduce you to Gimli. How are you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going? I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Nice. I'm very happy for you for reaching out. Thank you for reaching out. I didn't say thank you before we started the podcast, but thank you for reaching out and stepping up because sometimes people are shy or they just I don't know. But I love when people reach
Yeah,
out
I mean, like
and
that's
they
what
want to be on
I.
the podcast.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Like I know, like it's definitely a hard topic for people to talk about, but like you said, it's also an important topic
Yeah.
for people to talk about. And I was listening to it, and I was like, I'm cool with talking about it. So, why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. Well, when I was checking my email, because what I usually do is just like I send myself some information, and then when I was checking my email, I was like, wait, somebody reach out, and then I saw it, and then I replied your email, and that was really really cool. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So then, uh, to get started from the very beginning, tell us a little bit about your capoeira story, how you started, where you started, and what was your journey, your capoeira journey from the very first day until now.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I'm born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. And I lived a bunch of different places. I moved from Kentucky to San Diego, lived there for 3 years. And then I moved to Durham, North Carolina. And that's where I first encountered capoeira. I know like you've talked about this a bit on the podcast. I also grew up playing video games. So I guess like the first time
Nice.
I encountered capoeira was like on a video game, but I didn't know what it was then. So I get to Durham, and my friends had a roommate who practiced and also taught classes, him and his girlfriend at the time. And so I saw them practicing, and I was like, that looks, mad cool. And I went to try it. And so like I went to one of their classes, which they had at a community center, and it didn't have any air conditioning in the community center.
Oh, okay.
And again, it's Durham, North Carolina. So it's like super hot, super humid. And I did it for a while. I'm like, I don't like being hot. Like I cannot stand being hot. And so I did it for a bit, and I was like, I don't know if I could do this. Like it wasn't necessarily like the physical aspect of it that was hard. Like it was literally just like the temperature of it. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. And so I couldn't stick with it. And but then like I was in North Carolina until 2014. And I ended up going back to the class probably around 2011.
Okay.
I went, and I was actually just talking to a friend about this recently, and he brought it up. And I was like, oh yeah, we did go. And we went to a few classes. But again, like it was miserably hot, and I I couldn't stick with it. And so I graduated in 2014 from the school that I went to there. And then I went to grad school in Denver, Colorado. But like my experience with capoeira like never left. Like I still, even though it was hot, I still really enjoyed it. Like
nice.
And I really appreciated it, and I thought about it often. And so when I got to Denver, that was like one of the first things that I looked for.
Oh, nice.
As
Okay.
a capoeira group. And so I got to Denver in 2014, and I ended up linking up with Capoeira, like Denver Capoeira Brazil.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And and did that for 2 years, and loved every minute of it. And then I graduated and I came back home to Louisville, and I couldn't. I had a hard time finding a group, and that was the first thing I did. Like first thing, probably even before I got to Louisville, I was like, okay, Capoeira group in Louisville. And so like I had a really hard time finding the group in Louisville. I did, find a group in Lexington, but that's like an hour and a half one-way drive away. And I was like, that's a lot. I considered it. Like I really did. I was like, but I missed it that much. I was like, maybe I'll do it. But I ended up getting involved in MMA at a really cool studio here called Rough Hands. And but again, like I still, thought about capoeira, and I'm glad that I had that experience, because like I find that I think I'm definitely a better person physically and mentally when I have like a physical activity to do.
Hey, Capoeira Nation, I'm very happy to announce our workshop with Fosmanda Coruja, or also known as a Fosmanda Joy, all the way from New York on May 14th here in Indianapolis, hosted by us here in the Capoeira Brazil, Indianapolis. And this is going to be a 2 hours full of Capoeira. The first hour is going to be full class with Fosmanda Joy. And we are going to have right after that a full hour of Hada, or full hour of us moving, connecting, and playing as much as you want and as much as we can. The early bird is going to end 1 month before the workshop, okay? Make sure you register, click the link below, and come join us on May 14th, 2022 for this amazing workshop with Fosmanda Coruja.
And so like I really appreciated them, and like they were definitely a home for me for about 2 years. And I definitely learned a lot of stuff. And I ended up, one of my classmates in the group, he was familiar with capoeira, and I was like, what? And that was like the closest I had gotten to it since leaving Denver. And so it was cool because like me and him would spar together. And so we would spar, and I'd be able to like, kind of like throw in like any of the stuff that I remembered from capoeira, and it still never, like I said, it never left. Like even like my stance, like my fighting stance is, I switch, like I would switch stance a lot. Like a Jenga, like that. And it was just like still, like still there.
Was he like,
so like that was cool. But then, well, no, like I don't remember like how we got on the topic. Like I think I mentioned like that I practiced when I lived in Denver. And like he had ended up encountering it somewhere. And like, so we kind of like bonded over that. And then, one day we were sparring. He was like, oh, like, how would you feel about, just like, throwing in, like some, capoeira? Because I was like, let's do it. So like, like we were able to do that. And that was really fun. And so I found the group that I'm with now, Bantu Berama with Professor Gafanioto. I found them in October. And so, even though it took me a while to find them, I kind of feel that, with regards to like my capoeira journey is like it's like, it's always been there. And I would say specifically, it's always been there when I needed it. And so like, even though like I wanted to find a group, like I wanted desperately to find that group, I don't think I found it until, I think I'm definitely in a better place, like to be able to receive it in the way that I need it. And that's why I didn't find it until October.
Okay, nice. So it was meant to be, definitely.
I think, like, I think for sure, like I said, it never was like not, on my mind. And, I think like my experiences are vastly different, like when I was practicing in Denver, like I some benefits from it, like as far as, like having like that physical activity, like release. But, like I was very much in a place where I was like, like I want to know how to do these kicks and I want to know how to do them right. And, I wanted to know how to do everything right. And, like, and I think that's a good thing. And, like I practiced the instruments and practiced the songs and whatnot. And that was really good. And, these days I feel like it's more of like a feeling. Like it's more of a feeling. It's not that I don't care about doing things right. It's just more, I think it's just like, it's been like more holistic. Like it's just it's more of a feeling. And I've been trying to practice more of like, how do I incorporate it into, my daily life, which is, I've been kind of interesting because like, my, like my mental health stuff, like I have ADHD and I wasn't, diagnosed until I was an adult. And so I didn't know that like, ADHD in adults looks very different than it does in kids. But like I can also see in hindsight, like, I totally had it as a kid too, but like just wasn't diagnosed. Like that wasn't a time when really they were like, honestly, like, like diagnosing, they weren't like paying attention to Black kids, honestly. I mean, that's just there's research that supports that. Like we weren't really like paid attention to, like as far as like our behavioral issues or how they might connect, to our mental health. And so
that energy
like
gotta come out somewhere, right?
Right. Yeah. And so like as an adult, it comes out, it's just the same energy, but like you're grown, right? And you're stronger. And so it comes out in a lot of like really negative ways. And so, like it's, like being like really moody,
totally.
Or, having like that pent up, kind of like showing up in like pent up aggression. Like I also, like like I have like these tinted glasses. Because like sometimes eye contact is very difficult, on the spectrum. And so to have like a practice where, there's a couple things that happen that are helpful. And so like, one of the first things is like that physical outlet. So you're getting that energy out. Two, one of the things that I first encountered when I was came to the classes in October with a practitioner named Faishka is, and it kind of like is linked to my name because he was like, you're so serious, because when I play, like, like I'm just very intense. And he was, and he was like, he was like, don't forget to smile. And I was like, what? Because like smiling on command is not, like it's not like it's kind of uncomfortable for me. And I was like, what is this? Like, what? Smiling? That's so weird. But like explaining to me that like, and like in Capoeira, like everything that we do, like we do it with joy in our hearts.
100%.
And so, like, and so like trying to like take that and like not only incorporate it into my practice, but like incorporate it into my life. And so that's been helpful. And then like you've got this whole practice too, where like you have to make eye contact.
Totally.
Like you have to make eye contact all the time. And so it's I think that that's been really helpful as well. And just like having like this just kind of like a group of people. And I think the group of people that I encountered in Denver were great. But I also feel like this group is this group is different in that like it feels more like a family. And like I feel like I had to try harder to find them,
to fit in.
And well, like just to like find out who they were. And like I had a friend that I had a friend that I grew up with, and I saw on his Instagram that his son was practicing capoeira in a park, and I was like, is that here? And so like I hit him up on Instagram, and I was like, yo, I was like, is your kid here? Is like he doing that? And it was like a little ceremony for him. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, where? I was like, where? With you? And he was like, I'll link you up to my friend. And so like, he texted and linked me up to his friend, who is named Tartaruga. And Tartaruga practices Angola. And so I linked up with him, and then come to find out, Tartaruga lived 3 houses down
No way. That's
from a
so
friend of
funny.
mine. Yeah, from a friend of mine named Sarah, and like knew her parents. And I was like, that's so, because I'd been over Sarah, so I was like 50, like 50 million times. And so
Yeah.
I linked up with him. We started practicing. We practiced in his garage because it was October. So we
Okay.
practiced in his garage. And that was cool because, like, in Denver, I mostly did like Hey Janelle.
Okay.
And so I like to get to have like this Angola experience was, I think, really great. And
Nice.
that's when I got my name. And so, like, the whole time that I practiced in Denver, like, I never got an Apolito.
Yeah.
And so we're in Tartaluga's garage, and he was telling the story actually the other day in class, and how I got my name. And so he was saying that when he gets a new student, he likes to, like, kind of like, like, touch them. Like, he likes to, like, push them,
Yeah.
like, do like a bend out, like something, like, just to see how they react to it. And so he
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
that when he did that to me, he was like, man, he's like, this dude's like really solid. Like,
Nice.
he's he's a little guy. Like, he's a little guy, but he's like really solid and like
Yeah. Yeah.
sturdy. And like, he's like, when he grabs me, like, he has like this really strong grab and like this total like iron will. And
Nice.
so I remember we were practicing, and I remember him just like looking at me, and like it was clear that he was like having a conversation with himself.
Huh.
Like, clearly I
You saw
wasn't
the
a part
thought
of it, but he was just like looking, and I was
rolling.
like, yeah. And I was just kind of like, all right, like, and we're like, doing our Jenga, and he's just like looking
Yeah.
at me. He's like, I hope you're not offended by this, but he's like, and people, like, I normally don't give people like, an Apolito like so soon, but he was like, are you familiar with Lord of the Rings? And I was like, it's funny. I was like, I had just watched it. I had never seen it. I just watched it like within 2 years. I'd
Okay.
never seen like Lord of the Rings. I'd never seen Star Wars, anything like that. And so I was like, yeah, I just watched it. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm thinking about calling you Gimli.
Ah.
And I had to like think, and I was like, Gimli.
That's funny.
And so yeah, it's like, for folks like who aren't familiar with like the Lord of the Rings universe, which I'm not super familiar with, because again, I just saw it like within the last 2 years. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Gimli is a he's a dwarf. He's a
Yeah. Yeah.
dwarf,
Yeah.
and so
So
I'm
the
like
guy with
5
the
feet
axe and
tall.
the big beard. Yeah.
um, exactly, yeah, he's the guy with the axe and the big beard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so and I was like, no, I was like, I'm not offended by it at all. I was like, because I was like, if you're gonna be any dwarf, you might as well be Gimli, right? Because he's like, like he's a bad dwarf, right? Like, he
Yeah.
gets in there, and like,
He's really
he's
strong.
got his
He's with
axe,
the
and like
movies.
he's
Yeah.
very serious. Yeah, he's very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and very serious about what he does. And so
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I was like, I'm with that. And so yeah, so normally, like, we practiced, and he would say that, like, normally when it gets cold outside, they would like link up with the group to like be on the inside. And so that's when I encountered his friend and
Okay.
brother, a
Okay.
Capoeira Gafanhoto,
Nice.
who ended up practicing. He has this practice place 7 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
um,
Nice.
so
That's so crazy how
yeah,
everything's
so that's
connected.
kind of how we found each other. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's it's pretty cool how like everything is connected there with the capoeira, and who knows, you probably like cross paths with them many times and you just didn't even realize.
Had no clue. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, had no clue. Like, I mean, like, I've talked about it in couples counseling. Like, I'm married, and I mentioned Gafanhoto's name in couples counseling, and my therapist was like, "Oh yeah, I know who he is." So, like, like, we had been seeing her for like I don't know how long, and so like she totally knew who Gafanhoto was. So
Nice.
yeah, so I think like definitely like in the same vicinity,
Yeah.
as at least like the professor, if not some of the other people, but like in the same vicinity. So yeah, so like, I mean, as frustrating as it was to like not be practicing capoeira like
Yeah.
for those like first 3 years that I was in Kentucky, I did have a home in rough hands and in MMA.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, and found the folks that I needed to find when I needed to find them.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. And then how I know you mentioned a little bit, but to be a little more specific, how capoeira like start helping you with your mental health and the way you felt, or whatever. What capoeira, which part of capoeira
Yeah.
was involved in that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like the best way to describe it is like I, I connect with it on a physical level, but also connect with it on a spiritual level.
Nice,
And that
nice.
was something that I felt in Denver, even
Yeah,
though that it wasn't really something that was like really talked about.
yeah.
But it was like something that I felt like specifically, through the music. And so like I was, raised Southern Baptist, and like I think when we think about
Sorry, you say
like a
raise
lot
how?
of like African American culture, Southern Baptist, like
Uh,
it's like a Baptist,
oh,
it's a yeah, but what they call it Southern Baptist because like if you're in the South, it's a little slightly different of a denomination. It's the same
okay.
religion, but it's just a cultural difference.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so
I'm not familiar.
yeah, and so when you think about like that and like what we consider like more diasporic spiritual practices, it's a
Okay.
lot of similarities.
Oh,
And
really?
so like that was something that I picked up on, like, yeah, like in the music, right? Like so in capoeira music, it's very call and response, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Same
Exactly. Yeah.
thing in Southern Baptist, yeah, like Southern Baptist gospel music is call and response.
Huh.
In capoeira, we use a pandera. In Southern Baptist, we use a tambourine.
Yeah.
It's just like a pandera without the
With the
middle part.
skin. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like it's very similar, like the clapping. Like in capoeira, right? Like we clap in the
Yeah.
hora. Southern Baptist, like, when you're in church and, there's the singing going on, the call and response, like, people are clapping.
Yeah.
I think, it, and again, like, we don't talk about it a lot, but like, from what I've been learning and experiencing, like, specifically with like the Angola practice is like, there's like this, like, there is the spirituality, like, there is this ritual, there is this
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
tradition that, like, I really do appreciate and I really do connect to, like as a person of the diaspora.
Yeah.
And like I remember in Denver, a person wrote a song about the Orisha
Oh,
Yemaya,
nice.
and
Wait, which one?
I had just started Yemaya.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so like I had just at that time like started kind of like learning about the Orishas,
Nice.
and like all I knew was I was like, similar to that music that I grew up with in Southern Baptist culture, like all I knew was that it filled me up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
where, like if I was having like a rough day, like if I was in a bad, mental place, like I knew that like not only the movements in capoeira, but like the music was gonna fill me up. And so like
Hundred
that's
percent.
very similar to my experience now. And that like, yeah, like like if I'm having
Yeah.
and I mean, geez, like there was like, I don't know, like maybe like a month ago where like, I mean, it was like it was like not great. It was
Eh,
really bad. Like, as like far as like, being super depressed and like dealing with like a lot of anxiety, and like
yeah.
I'm in nursing school and like
Okay.
having the stress of that, and like being in nursing school during COVID and having to do clinicals, or like I
Oh,
mean, it's
yeah.
like a lot of things.
Yeah.
And like that, like when I have like that stress and that anxiety and like poor coping skills, like it affects my relationship and
100%. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
marriage. And so like that is like its own issue. And so I remember like there was a particular day where like I just couldn't like I was just like, whatever it is, I can't, like I spent like a good chunk of the day like crying off and on, like I
Yeah.
couldn't, I didn't really have like the energy to get out of bed. But it was a
Yeah.
capoeira day, and like I made a rule for myself, just because like I know that sometimes I can get in those places. And I
Yeah.
was like, you don't cancel it for anything. Like you don't cancel it like unless like like you're sick, and I'm talking like projectile vomiting, like like you're sick, like you can't go. And
Yeah.
mental
Yeah.
health, like that is an illness, right? Like it's an
Yeah.
illness that's just as valid as having a gastrointestinal issue or having like
Yeah.
a broken arm. But for me, like that's my boundary, that's my rule.
Yeah.
And so like I rolled in late, like 30 minutes late, but like I went.
Nice.
And like and I'm glad that I did, because again, like not only does like the music, fill me up, but like the ashe of the hora fills me up. Like after class, like we'll always talk about, like what did we learn? Or like we can talk about, just kind of like, like whatever, we want to talk about. And I remember that day in particular, like it was really hard for me to talk because like I was kind of like emotional. I don't think in a bad way, but like in the sense that like, also like kind of like the role that it plays is that whatever it is that I'm dealing with, and Gafanyoto will say, like you can't run from life. Like you can't run from life, like in the Hora. Like it's like whatever it is that you're trying to get away from, like you're gonna encounter it there. 100%. And so, the thing that I like about it is that like one, I'm gonna encounter whatever it is that I don't want to deal with, but like I also have like the space to like, like to think and or not to think. Sometimes it's best to like just not think, right? And be able to just like turn your brain off.
100%.
Yeah, just like turn your brain off and just like, do your moves. But, I think like the thing that I like about it too is that like I just like I leave it, like whatever it is, like I leave it. Like I leave it on the floor in the Hora. Like I don't take it back. I don't take it back home with me. You know what I'm saying? I don't get back in the car with it. And so so it's been like very I think like that, like for me, like that's kind of like the the role that it plays, like, again, like, getting that physical outlet, I connect with it, spiritually, like in the sense that the music, the instruments, all of that, like the clapping, like it fills me up, and, just leaving whatever it is, like, just like literally like sweating it out and leaving it there and like trying my best and just like leaving it there on the floor.
No, that's nice, because that's and I was kind of like on the same situation when I was a kid, because as a kid I grew up in a kind of like a rough relationship with a home, and capoeira was pretty much the place where I felt like safe and I felt good, and it made me feel good with myself. And then that was pretty much the channel where not to run away, but also to kind of like balance that out instead of being just like stuck with those feelings that I was feeling at home. In capoeira, I had all my friends. I have the energy. I was the physical part. I was spending time with all my friends, having fun and smiling, and just connecting with people. And then that gave me the balance, and I'm not gonna say escape of that, but it definitely makes you feel better and makes you feel like on a good spot. And then with the years, now understanding that, and one day I just was like, whatever, man, I'm just gonna give permission to myself to just always feel how I feel in capoeira.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like you mentioned, like there is like like this community aspect to it, right? And I think that that's a super important thing.
100%.
Like I know, like like I and I tried to like I did things like in between like Colorado and finding this group in Louisville. Like I would practice on my own sometimes, and it's great, but it's like it's also not the same, right? Like
it's going to be the same.
It's not, and it's good to practice on your own. Yeah, it's good to practice on your own, like so you can keep up your practice, and it's good to read and understand the history and the philosophy and stuff. But like it's that community aspect, which I would say outside of the context of capoeira and like the very small, like close-knit group of friends that I have, like I'm not really a community person. So
not anymore.
it is something,
now you are.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's something like pretty special to say, like at least for this particular group of people, that I've, been fortunate enough to share space with for the last little bit, that like I'm comfortable, like sharing space with them, and that there is, like a place, like you were saying, like there's a place for you, and it is safe, like, whether it's safe from, whatever home experience you're having, or if it's, just safe for you to just like show up and be, you know, like 100% yourself, and to be 100%, you know, present. You know, I think, you know, like, and, you know, being able to like feel heard and like have your voice heard is like super important. And, like, just like the not judgment, you know, like,
Yes, 100%. Yes.
you know, like there's no judgment. And like, I remember, like, it's really cool. Like, I started taking, my cousin's kids with me, and
Nice.
they're 7. Yeah, they're 7 and 9. And so, I mean, little do they know, like, they also play, you know, like a role,
Yeah.
you know, kind of like in my, you know, like healing practice. Cause like getting to watch them,
Yeah.
you know, practice is like one of like the highlights,
Oh, man, that's so
of
cool.
my week.
Yeah.
And I remember like we were playing, after, and we're doing music, and, one of the members, you know, had gotten emotional
Okay.
during it. And, you know, at the end of it, like, you know, he was like kind of teary eyed. And, you know, one of the kiddos that I bring, you know, he was just like, you know, like, why is so-and-so, you know, crying? And, you know, like, Gafanyoto is like, you know, like, sometimes, you know, people can get really emotional, and
Yeah.
like sometimes people can get, you know, really emotional, you know, when playing music. But like the important part was that like there was no judgment about it,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. 100%.
Gafanyoto just like put his hand on his back and was just like, you know, like, you're good here,
Yeah.
like you're good to do that here. And so, yeah, so just like being able like to see that, and, you know, like to experience that, and like, you know, for people to, you know, I think like, you know, outside of tears, like, we're all vulnerable, right, around each
Yeah.
other, right? We're all doing like this stuff, and we're trying new things. Like, some of us fall, you know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's all of
100%.
these like moments for like, you know, embarrassment, but
Yeah.
like it's never about that. Like, it's just all about learning,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
100%.
know, and like supporting each other, and people are going to cheer you on.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Because is unfortunately society teaches us to that everything have to be good, you know, and then
Yeah.
for us to be vulnerable is we we think, or society make us think that being vulnerable is bad, that, and then
Right.
is, I don't know, it's just like, I think is, and that's something I struggle with myself, and you know, being vulnerable is okay, it's good to be vulnerable in front of everybody, you know, not just in capoeira, just who
Yeah.
you are. And you know, we're humans, we make mistakes, and we're not perfect, we're gonna fall, and we just get up again,
Yeah.
outside or
Yeah. And
inside.
that's that aspect. Yeah. And like, and that's that aspect of like, you know, when I was saying like, you know, taking like, you know, understanding it more on like a philosophical level, and like taking all of that and applying it like to my life,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
oh
like
yeah,
in
oh yeah.
general. You know, because like, if I'm, you know, if I'm happy and I feel healthy doing capoeira, then I can take that and apply it to my life, and like, hopefully, you know, be happier in life, and, you know, feel healthier, you know, in life. And, so yeah, so like, that's kind of like my goal, you know, these days. And, you know, like I said, like, incorporating it as part of, you know, my self-care. You know, it's
Yeah,
like, it's just important, just as important as, you know, when I wake up, and, you know, like, okay, like, I've got to take my meds in the morning, I've got to make sure that, you know, like, I eat lots of protein with the meds that I
nice.
take. And, you know,
That's why you
Tuesday,
got, you're the
Thursday,
solid.
yeah, and then like Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, those are capoeira days, and you don't cancel them for anything,
Yeah.
you know, unless you're sick. And, you know,
Yes.
when you're not doing like your Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, you know, like, you find time, you know, to read some
Yeah.
books or listen to a podcast,
Ah,
you
there you
know,
go.
about,
Nice.
yeah, you know, like, about capoeira, and about the history, and like about other people's experiences.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just recently started doing like capoeira in the park. You
Nice.
know, like,
Okay.
on like, I choose like one day, like, you know, on a day off that's not a capoeira day. And, you know, like, you know, I take my, you know, my tripod, and I,
Yeah.
you know, take my beer bow, and I go to the park, and like, people stare, and that's fine. But like, I know that like, you know, one of
Yeah,
these
just
days, like,
curious. Yeah.
somebody's going to come
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're gonna come and talk to me
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Hey, what is
And
this? And what is it for? And blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
like what is this? And like, and it's my hope that if I tell them about it, because I mean, yeah, like you said, like a lot of people, are like they struggle. Like a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
like struggle with a lot of like health things, like emotional,
Yeah.
physical, and like who knows, like maybe one day somebody comes and talks to me in the park,
Yeah.
and like we have that in common, and I can like share that with them.
Yeah.
Maybe they only show up and like talk to me that one time, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
But like I do know that in my experience, and also with a lot of the experience of the people that you've talked to, is that like when you encounter capoeira like at least one time, it has an impact on you. It has a
Oh yeah.
lasting impact on you.
Yeah. Yeah. You can grab probably what I used to do when I was a kid is on days of capoeira. I always told my friends like, "Hey, what are you doing? You bored at home? Let's just go do some training." Or you got like a free hour. The only thing about like the adults who we get, the more busy, quote unquote busy, because sometimes we fill up with our time. We just like
Right.
silly stuff, and then we call it busy, right? But sometimes you can reach out to
Right.
friends. They what?
No, yeah, I was agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you could just grab a friend and be like, hey, like let's go do capoeira together.
Yeah, and I think I've definitely invited people to come experience it. In fact, I just had I happened to link up for lunch with my boss at like my old job that I had.
Oh, nice.
And like she is she was in a particularly rough spot, like the job that we had at the time, and she's still there, not particularly healthy, and like
Dang. Yeah.
we like we were always like as coworkers like being like, hey, like we're like we're worried about you, right? Like because this is like so stressful for you, and like the environment is so toxic for you, and like we worry about like
100%.
everything. Like we worry about your
Yeah.
physical health, like your heart.
Yeah.
We worry about your mind. And so when we met, I was really happy, not happy to hear it that she was like struggling so much, but I was happy to hear that she was acknowledging it.
Nice.
And
Okay.
she was asking me what I've been up to, what I've been up to, and I was like, honestly, I was like, I go to school and I go to capoeira, like that's pretty much it. And she was like, what? So I was explaining it to her and like explaining to her like all the aspects, and she was super interested in it, and like I don't, she was just like, well, I don't know if I can do that. And I was like, the cool thing is that it's like all of these aspects, right? Like if you can't play it, physically, I was like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because like there's still the music, there's still the singing. Like if you're not comfortable with singing, like there's still like you being part of the hoda and like clapping and kind of like giving like that ashe back. And so I told her, I was like, whenever you want, I was like, I think it'd be really good for you, but I was like, I'll just put it out there. I was like, if you just want to come and like just be part of the circle, and kind of like get some of that good ashe, like just shoot me a text. And I was like, I'm there all the time. So like
that's the same thing
come get some.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same thing for again with what society teaches us, that being like, oh, we're adults, we're not gonna be able to do those kind of stuff. It's just like, if you practice, you can do it. And if you show up, we just care of, again, we take too much care of what people are gonna say if I do this cartwheel on the back way and I never do cartwheels, and then it's just like, doesn't matter, man. You just, that's how you get from point A to point A to point B. And then I mean, how do you feel the first time you sat behind the wheel? You know what I mean? And then I was nervous.
Right.
I thought, I was super scared to then get in the highway. And then it was like, dude, me getting in the highway and then my legs start shaking, and then it's crazy. And then now I can go 80 miles an hour and I'm fine.
Right.
But it takes practice, and it takes practice.
Yeah, it definitely does take practice. And like I mean, there's definitely things, and that's kind of like one of the other things too that it's kind of like connected, is that like generally whatever it is, like I'll be like, like I like it's kind of like funny, like it's gotten to the point like I just like always have like this look on my face. Like it's usually when it comes like acrobatics, I'm just
Okay.
kind of like,
Eh,
I don't know. It's like now, so now it's like, God forget the people in the class, like they'll look and like see me. I ain't even said nothing. And they'll just like crack up laughing because like they know what that look on my face means. Like it means like, I'm sorry, you want me to do what? Like you want me to like, yeah,
or
like,
like
come again,
if
but
you
like not.
breaking on steps, you can just do baby steps to get there, but you can definitely get it there. I mean, of course,
Yeah.
there's things that, like
Yeah.
for
And that's been
example,
like super.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like, and like that's been like the super helpful part is like kind of like how it's broken down. And so like I'll start out skeptical, and then like before I know it, I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, like I'm doing
Yeah,
this, and like that wasn't that bad at all.
exactly.
And yeah, so
Yes.
like I've kind of like trying to like take this spirit of like, all right, like not comfortable, not really trusting, but I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like that is also something about like trying to like take that into life too, where like yeah, like you can like yeah, like you said, like we like we're conditioned and socialized to be skeptical about a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
things. And I think that like I'm definitely skeptical about a lot of things. Like I come from a science background, right? Where it's like in
Yeah.
science, like you're skeptical of everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so but trying to be more open and saying like, okay, like I'm skeptical, I'm not particularly trusting right now. And that goes for like emotional stuff too. Like, like, yeah, like I'm not sure if I want to talk about, XYZ, or
Yeah.
like it might be too hard to talk about this or too hard to process that.
Yeah.
But to take that same philosophy and be like, okay, even though those things are true, I'm going to try because
Yes.
ultimately it's going to be beneficial
Yeah.
for me, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's like in class or outside of class, like me trying something,
Yes.
even if it's new and uncomfortable, is going to be it's going to be beneficial
Yeah. Yeah.
ultimately. And
100%.
so yeah, I mean, like honestly, like I mean, people don't often believe like I'm as old as I am. I'm going to be 40 in November or in
Awesome. That's
December,
cool.
and like
Looking
I
good to be 40.
as thank you, but like even as a kid, like I didn't do my first cartwheel until like I was an adult, like
Same.
in
Oh, no,
in
technically.
capoeira.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
My first
like
car
never
was I was
trusted
like 16.
myself. Yeah, I never trusted myself. Like
Yeah.
didn't trust the process. Like didn't trust that I wouldn't hurt myself. More
Yeah.
importantly, I didn't trust that like I wouldn't look like a fool, like or a failure
Yeah. Yeah. And
or whatever.
that's exactly the point
And
I
that
was talking about. That people, we like you said, we get conditioned on be like, oh, like I'm gonna look silly or I'm gonna look like this or whatever we barrier we put in on front of us to say like, hey, like I'm not gonna try that because I'm gonna look silly. And then yeah, it's just like about practice for you to get comfortable, like the eye contact, because you were forced to be in capoeira to get outside of your comfort zone on making eye contact. Now making eye contact is not as hard. Is I don't really know the position
right.
right now, but making eye
Yeah.
contact is not as hard as before.
Yeah. It's something that I can say, it's something that I can say like, at least like to myself, like, all right, like, I'll try,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the
I'll,
best part.
I'll
Yeah,
try, yeah, like a little bit harder, like to do that, because I think also too, like kind of like that lesson, that can translate, because like if you don't make eye contact in
yeah,
capoeira, like you're gonna get kicked, you're gonna
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
like you're gonna get hit,
And it's funny
like
how
if
like
you don't
through
like,
eye contact you can see the bigger picture, and through eye contact you can actually read better the body language, which is funny how that works.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And so, again, like trying to take that and, like, kind of like, like baby steps, right? And so like, if I'm out and about, like being mindful, like of my surroundings, and
yeah,
like that being like on a more like macro level, so that
yeah,
then, as I get to those more micro levels, which is where it's a bit more difficult,
yeah,
like still being able to, like I'll say like, okay, like, in my mind, like, all right, like if you could just do like, let's see if you could do like 5%,
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
like, can
and that's
you
a big progress,
like,
right?
and yeah,
Yeah,
like in this
I
interaction, can you like, try to like look at this person, maybe not like consistently,
Yeah.
but like, can it be, 5% of like this whole interaction that you're
100%.
having?
Yeah. And it's the same for capoeira. I was, and people don't believe about this, but when I started capoeira, I was extremely, I'm talking about like very extremely introvert kid. And then I was the kid
Mhm.
that sat in the corner. I got to class, sat in the corner, never said hi to anybody, did the class really quick and left. And never have a human interaction with anybody because I was very shy. And I was scared of having human interaction or making eye contact or like, like what people are gonna say. I don't know what people are gonna say about me. And then eventually capoeira start breaking that out. And then eventually start changing a little bit and then changing a little bit and then changing a little bit. And now, I can talk to anybody and not be scared of making eye contact or shaking hand but that's thanks to capoeira because capoeira got me to this position
Yeah.
because I got exposed in front of the Hada. And the Hada, you have 20 people looking at you, like 20 pair of eyes looking at you. And then is
Right.
the
Yeah.
energy is focused on you, on the two people in front of in the middle. So is that
Yeah.
interaction that got me where I am today, where I feel comfortable with myself.
Yeah. It definitely, it builds a special leadership, right? Like those leadership skills
Yeah,
that, are necessary in life.
yeah, yeah, totally. And then how now on a quick glance, how was your mental health? Just to compare how it was before you started capoeira and how it is today's days when you already been doing capoeira for a little bit or being exposed to capoeira for a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I can definitely say, like before finding the group here
Yeah,
or in Louisville, um, and even though like I was still doing like, my MMA stuff, so like I still had like this physical outlet.
yeah,
Um, yeah, like things were still a struggle. And like, I mean, and those people, like the people at the MMA studio, like they were like, I mean, like they were super supportive. And, like
that's awesome.
it wasn't that I, couldn't talk to them,
Yeah,
about stuff because I could. And, a lot of us, like I think we're very open, about the different things that we struggled with. But, like it's still like it was still very much a struggle.
yeah,
And like I also didn't have that rule for
yeah,
myself, right? About like showing up no matter what. And so I feel like the difference between that is like, even though like that was a community and it was a community,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
like I made friends there and they're great people, I feel like with capoeira, like and this group of people here, like the interactions are different.
yeah,
And kind of like going back to, kind of like, if you're thinking about yourself as like a gas tank, like if I went to MMA practice,
yeah,
like it was good that my tank would end on E because like I wanted to get all that energy out. So like
yeah,
my tank would end on E. But with capoeira, it's like, by the time I'm done, like I actually got like half a tank because I'm gonna end up on E because I got all the energy out, but I'm gonna end up with half a tank, possibly 3/4 of a tank, because I also got good energy back.
okay,
And so I feel like that, is kind of like the difference. And so in having that, that exchange of energy, like the negative and the difficult going out,
yeah,
but also the positive, and encouraging coming back in.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
for me, like that makes that has made the difference. And it's not to say that like things are, perfect,
yeah,
like pre and post, or like pre and intra and post, but like yeah, like I mean, I definitely feel like I feel better.
Yeah.
You know, I think that if I were to ask, if I were to ask my spouse, like, I think they would agree because, like, you know, there's times where, like, you know, when I'm in that bad place, they're just like, yeah, like, you know, like, I think you should go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, you know,
Yeah.
even before this trip that we're on, like, I wasn't sure I was going to come on this trip because, like, the last time, like, we came to Colorado, like, I had like I mean, for lack of a better term, like an emotional breakdown or like
Okay.
meltdown, like whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And you know, was like super anxious about
Yeah.
like coming back to this place, like, you know, like, what if that happens again? And like not really like, you know, like trust, like to like, I don't know, like however I can, like, you know,
Yeah.
trusting myself to, I don't want to say like be on my best behavior because like it's
Yeah.
not like that. Like, you know, it's just like my brain doesn't make certain chemicals and that's just that. So it's not like something intentional. It's just like
Okay.
I didn't trust myself to like not get in that bad place and like ruin
Yeah.
our vacation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I didn't like I was really on the fence about doing it. And so that's when I was like, you know what? You know, and they were like, you know, like keep in touch with me about your feelings, like let me know how you're feeling. And you know, it was like the day that we were supposed to leave. And so I was like, you know, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like go to the park and you know, like just practice in the park for a little bit. And you know, it was a nice day. You know, even though there wasn't that community aspect, like I didn't have my group around me, but
Yeah.
like, you know, like I sweated it out. You know, I was listening to music while I did it. You know, like I practiced some beer now and, you know, like practice like, you know, walking with it. It's like walking and playing, walking backwards
Nice.
and playing,
Nice.
you know, singing. So like, you know, using like not only my physical energy, but my mental energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And, you
So
know, like went
you have some
home and
endorphins
like
with
took
you.
a shower. Yeah. And like went home, took a shower. And like literally it was just like, I don't know, maybe like 2 hours before we were supposed to leave. And like, mind you, like probably an hour before that, I was like, I'm not going. Or like, I'm not sure I'm not going. And so then after that, like, you know, I messaged my spouse. I was like, yeah, you know, I was like going to the park and practicing was a good idea. You know, I was like, I feel a lot better. And, you know,
Nice.
like now I'm here in Colorado, you
Nice.
know, whereas I was not sure I was going to come at all.
Yeah. 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 Well, if you have a open space on are you going to be there tomorrow too?
We'll leave tomorrow. Cause like I said, I'm on spring break. And so like
Okay.
like we have to at least, it's a 16-hour drive. It's a
Yeah.
super long drive, but we'll take our time. Like there's some people that I do want to see.
Okay.
And I was bummed out. I missed a class yesterday. They had a
Yeah.
I was like thinking, I was like, oh, I'll drop in on my old Capoeira class, but they practiced yesterday. I missed it. But yeah, so we'll hit the road on Monday.
Okay.
Kind of like take our time getting back and not have to
Okay.
rush.
Yeah, because I was thinking if you're still there and you have an open space, you can join our online class on Mondays. Or like every other Monday we do online class.
What time is it?
At 7 p.m. Indiana time or Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, yeah, like I'll check in. We haven't talked about like when we're leaving.
Okay.
And there's a 2-hour time difference here. So yeah, like I mean, if we're still here, like I would totally do that.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. I'll send you the link later, and then if you have the time and the space, join it. If not, don't worry about it. You can do another time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
invitation.
Of course. Of course. And then that's my point with it. You mentioned something important about like the community. You know, is and that's why my focus on this podcast is about the community, to reach out the community, to get connected with community, and you know, that's I feel I grew up in a very tight capoeira community. We were all close together. We'll always meet together, met at the park, different groups, different capoeira, and blah blah. And then for bachisados or capoeira events, or even our classes, at the every Saturday for our hada, we always had like 10 or 15 people from other groups and visiting and having fun with us there. But the and
Yeah.
that's what I want to show here, you know, is if we all join together and we, you know, support each other as a community, we is going to bring a lot of benefits for us, not just physically and then the students and get to play with different people, but also like we're going to grow our community, you know, and build longer, uh, how do you say that? Longer lasting relationship, like, you know, relationships for a long time. And then that's the whole point of having a community.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like yeah, it definitely does. It makes, I feel like it makes you, like, having a group, it makes your individual, like you said, your individual practice, you know, like sustainable, like to have like that longevity. And you know, like that's one of the things, like when we close our classes, you know, we all kind of like huddle up, and you know, different people, you know, will do like the outro, but like generally it's around the same, which is, you know, that we, you know, we come together, you know, like we grow together,
Yeah.
and you know, we get better together. And you know, one of the things I'm like trying to explain, you know, to the little ones is that, you know, we also fail
Oh yeah.
together,
Oh, 100%.
right?
Yeah.
You know, like if, yeah, so it's like, you know, for one person, it's not just a matter of like one person, you know, did something.
Yeah.
You know, if one person, you know, did something, then what did we do, or what did we not do
Yeah.
to support that person
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in, you
100%.
know, growing or getting better? Yeah, so I think, and you know, and again, like like you said, like it's not just a matter of like that in capoeira. I mean, this is like, it's that in life too. And like,
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean, like I know that my life is better. um my life is better, you know,
Nice.
because of capoeira, and because
Nice.
of
Nice.
those philosophies that I can take,
Yeah.
um you know, into my life. And I can tell you right now, like, you know, Louisville's hot, it's humid, we're in the Ohio Valley, and I'll just sweat it out, you know, because like
Nice.
I feel like at this point in my life, like me and capoeira, we won't part ways again. I'll just deal with
Nice.
it.
That's yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. And that's the best part, that you take more in consideration the joyful part of what you enjoy, instead of like just like focus on the heat and all the stuff, which is really, really cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. And then
and that's that growth, right? Like that's that
yeah,
growth aspect.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And then what it would be your advice for people that are going through these, to wrap it up, to that are past,
Yeah,
before, or going through these experiences of mental health and all the stuff in capoeira, just in general point.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say, like, you know, and if this is something that, I mean, I would say it's the same thing across the board. Talk about it, right? Like if it's something like that's in your past, you know, that like you have overcome, talk about it, you know, because there
Yes.
are people who it's in their present, and whether it's like for them personally or for, like, you know, people in their life, you know, if you talk about it and if they hear you talking about it, then, you know, like that's something that they learned, that's something that they identify with. Overall, it like destigmatizes things. Like there's still like a lot of stigma around, you know, like mental health issues. There's a lot
Yeah.
of internalized stigma, you know, where we, you know, as the person who is affected by it, like you still have those negative beliefs that like society has, that you embody and you subscribe to, right? And so in hearing people talk about it, like that kind of like, you know, dismantles that. If it's in your present, talk about it,
Yeah.
for the same reasons, you know, that it destigmatizes things. Also that, you know, so that like, so that people know, and that, you know, that people know. It's like, you know, kind of like an accountability thing, but also like a support thing where, you know, like you're not alone, you know, that you're not alone because you talk to people about it. And yeah, and like to, like, I don't know, like let people support you.
100%.
You know, like let, like you know, like understand that, you know, it's not, you know, like it's not a weakness, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like an
Nothing to be ashamed of.
inherent defect. Yeah, yeah, it's like it's nothing Like there's nothing wrong with you. And, I think, to utilize your capoeira community, and and you don't, if you're not in a place where you're comfortable to talk to them about it, like that's fine too, but like to still utilize your community. So like if there are difficult things that are going on in your life, like, I mean, I feel like, like my professor is like great for that, like you don't have to just talk to him about capoeira stuff,
Yeah.
like you can talk to him about all kinds of stuff. There's people in the class who you can talk to about all kinds of stuff, so that you don't have to like, like carry that, like around with you, and to let people support you, and like I said, to find a way to like to leave it on the floor.
Yeah.
Like when you show up to class, like you show up 100%, and that includes like the not great parts, right? Like you show up 100%, that includes the part of you, who yelled at somebody.
Yeah.
That includes the part of you, who got really frustrated and punched a wall. That includes the part of you that cried all day.
Yeah.
Like that includes all of you. You show up with that, and like you leave it there.
Yeah.
You don't take it back with you, and you take in that good, and you leave that bad there on the floor, for the Hoda to deal with.
100%. Yeah. And you're going to feel released, and you're going to feel so much better right after, because it feels good to just let everything out. And then once you scan yourself and you can feel that, it just feels better. It just feels better. And
Yeah,
I encourage people to actually really, really do that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, truly. I mean, if you think about like, just like the practice of capoeira, right? Like it's rooted in liberation, right? And we talk about, like the liberation of those who were enslaved, like in historical context. But like what we're talking about, right? Like as far as like, letting people support you, this, like that's liberation.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same thing, so like really, like really embodying in that practice, and like letting it liberate you.
Yeah.
Like liberating you from like whatever it is, like your stigma, like all of it, like liberate you from that.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And it takes time. It takes time, because with baby steps definitely is going to help you. And then it does. Nothing's going to change overnight. Nothing does. And then, but the only thing that change overnight is just taking the step. And then you're gonna be like, today or tomorrow, I'm gonna start doing this. Just a baby step. Doesn't have to be something huge. And then it compounds over time, and it compounds over time. 6 months, 1 year, how long? Because everybody's going to be different time. But once you see, you look back and you like, oh man, it feels really good, the spot where I am right now, just by baby steps.
Yeah. And even if you don't see it, like even if you don't see it, like if you don't see the growth, like people that are in your community, like they see it.
Yes,
like
they're gonna notice it 100%.
And they'll let you know. Like, right? Like they'll big you up. They'll be like, hey, like I noticed this, or or I noticed that. And like that, at least like for me, like, like that's a confidence boost. And like, confidence boosts are good for us, like holistically, right? So like people, like, some of us are like not great. Like, we might have like low self-esteem, or like, have a difficult time at like, kind of like encouraging ourselves, or like patting ourselves on the back. But like, like people are watching, and they'll let you know, like, hey, like I've seen this growth in you. Like I've seen this change in you. And, I had that conversation with Tartaruga, the person who, who gave me my name, just on Tuesday.
Nice.
That he was like, like he's just like, you look good, you look healthy.
Nice.
Like, like I see you, and I see that, things have shifted, and that's good to hear.
That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, totally. And then it's good to have this kind of conversation, because it's important for people to just step out of the comfort zone. And like you said before, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you, or there's is not wrong. We're all humans. some people pass through it and you don't even know, and then sometimes you think
Yeah.
people are going to pass through anything. And sometimes I remember growing up, I heard one of my friends, he was extremely extrovert, or he was the opposite of what I was. And then he was my best friend, and then he was like, uh one day he told me, hey, like, I also have like struggles at home. I have struggles with my family. I have struggles with this. And I was like, how do you to do that? Because you're smiling all the time, you're playing around all the time. I was like, that's actually the way how I cover that up. I can sometimes I can be just smiling with you,
Mhm.
but it's I'm probably having a very, very hard time. And yeah, and again, you
Yeah,
never
yeah,
know.
and I mean that's valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's valid, yeah, I mean I often say, yeah, like we don't know what people are dealing with,
Yeah.
and
100%. Yeah.
like you said, people handle things in different ways, like for me, like, like a lot of times like my stuff like gets compounded
Yeah.
because like I'm just like I'm a doer, and I'm just like I just gotta like do this, like I've got to do homework, I've got this, like that, like all of these things, and like we don't make time for ourselves, like even to like just sit still
Yes.
and check in with ourselves to be like,
Yes.
how am I doing? Like, am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling frustrated? And so then what happens, at least for me, is like I'm doing so much, and then all of it just like hits
Yeah.
to the point where like I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah. It
went
wears
from
you
like
out.
doing like 50 million things to like, yeah, to like I can't even do anything. And like, yeah, it does it does wear you out. And I think,
Yeah.
that, and like, I mean, people, like, this has been like a very difficult time
Yeah.
for a lot of people, like the last like few years. Like, I mean, a lot of people, like in the beginning, like we were all very isolated, like that
Yeah.
can
100%.
wreak havoc on your on your mental health. Like even for those of us that are like introverted, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of like, whew, so glad I don't have to interact with people as much. But we still crave like human interaction.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people
We're
lost
humans.
people,
That's
right?
that's
Like
who
they
we are.
lost
Yeah.
family members. They lost loved ones. Like we've
Yeah.
had like a lot of like, like there were racial uprisings, right?
Yeah.
Like social unrest. Like there's a lot of things. God, parents who are like having to be teachers right now. Like
Yeah.
they've been
Yeah.
like cooped up in their house with their kids. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that have like taken place that like, like I think for people in the best of places are a struggle. And like, I think a lot of people who, and there's been like, again, like I'm a research person. So like, there's been a lot of research that like has talked about like, well, how has like the last, 2-3 years impacted people who
100%.
maybe didn't have mental health issues to begin with, right? But
Yeah.
like just in the last 2 years of life,
Yeah.
like, have like developed these things. And so again, like that's the importance of talking about it, because like, I don't know, like it's either your past, your present, or it might even be your future, right? Like maybe
Oh
you're
yeah.
fine right now, but like there's all kinds of things that can happen that, change your life and like shift your life.
Yeah.
They like shift your brain chemistry. There's all kinds of things that are like beyond our control.
Yeah. 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 100%. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up, and I just wanna say thank you so much. And it's nice
Oh,
to
thank you.
hear to hear different experience and how capoeira is helping people out there. And if you're listening to this and you have some sort of struggle, it's good for us to talk about it, because somebody can find solution from your experience. And then it's good for us to, it's just, we're a community. Is they there shouldn't be any sort of like judgmental or anything. Just forget about that and just be yourself, and give the permission to yourself to just come forward and get better at this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Gimli. I will talk to you soon, and just keep training, man.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you, man. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being part of this episode one more time. And thank you so much for being part of the Capoeira community. I'm very happy you made it all the way to the end. Now, make sure you listen to the next episode next week or the following week or the previous episodes. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram. And don't forget to reach out so we can have you on the podcast. Okay. Thank you so much for being part of this amazing journey in the Capoeira community. And I really, really hope to see you one time here in Indianapolis, or I'll see you in the hot next time. Okay. Keep training, keep your Capoeira school, keep supporting your Capoeira school, and keep training, keep loving Capoeira, keep training, keep playing the hot. I'll see you in the hot next time.